10,000 attempts. That's a 70 times difference, which would indicate that that person would be closer to tuff when his hardest was a medium demon than they are to Zoink. However, that would be a ridiculous statement considering they literally beat Silent Clubstep. The fact that they beat Silent Clubstep must count for something, as beating Silent Clubstep requires a certain amount of skill on its own. An amount of skill that was gained in those 700,000 attempts. Maybe they can't perform as well as Zoink, but there's a raw skill to be calculated in the fact that they are beating a level so far removed from a medium demon's difficulty. Just look at players who jump from one level to another, and then they're able to beat levels that are around that initial jump's difficulty, such as the case with Viwi jumping from, I believe it was 9 circles all the way to Slaughterhouse, and now Viwi is a professional Geometry Dash player because he gained that skill beating Slaughterhouse. It's the same logic as Curse taking 80,000 and Zoink taking 4,000 attempts to beat Subsuming Vortex. Nobody would ever say that Zoink is 20 times better than Curse, just that he actually, maybe some people would say that. Most people wouldn't say that Zoink is 20 times better than Curse. That would be insane. You'd be a robot at this current time. It's just that he performed 20 times better than Curse when beating Subsuming Vortex. So if that's the case, why did I even conduct this experiment? I do think that there are a lot of flaws with the most recent experiment that I conducted, but at the end of the day, it's just a different way of looking at things. I already mentioned how to make this test in particular more representative of skill versus performance, but when we did both, Aeon doesn't appear to be further from Zoink than a medium demon hardest player in either instance. The last argument I'll make are numbers. After some pretty conflicting reports, I'll just go with the number that will hurt my point the most. Geometry Dash has 6 million owners on Steam. It appears that 4.5% of the player base has beaten Ultimate Deadlocked, which, although an easy demon, we can say getting all 3 coins is basically an early medium demon difficulty feat. So let's say 4.5% of 6 million means that you have 270,000 people who have beaten a medium demon as their hardest at some point in time. Now we're going to jump from medium demon players to list demon players. We're calculating all the players who have beaten a medium demon and went on to venture all the way up, not only hard or insane or extreme, but to list demon. There are currently 3,633 Corner Crate profiles. This, mind you, includes people who only have legacy list levels and not even main list levels or extended list levels. We'll say that there's 4,000 just to account for any people who may have achievements but haven't submitted them to Corner Crate. Already we're going from 4.5% of players being able to beat a medium demon to 1.5% of those players being able to beat a list demon at any point in time. So how many of those people have beaten Deimos? Let's say 57, because that's literally the amount of people who have beaten Deimos as of the recording of this video, but we're just going to round up to say 60, and then let's say we're going to add another 170 because about 170 people have beaten Slaughterhouse, which is the most beaten level, which is harder than Deimos. That suggests that they can also beat Deimos, right? And then let's pretend that everyone who beat Deimos and everyone who beat Slaughterhouse are all different people. We're now at 230, and now let's add another 50 people who can but just haven't beaten Deimos, you know, but could. They just don't want to or don't feel like it. And now let's round up to the nearest 100. So we're at 300. So with all these numbers, you essentially realize that the argument is telling you that the actual skill difference between someone who is 1 of 1, or really 1 of 2, but we're not mentioning pop-off for the sake of this argument. So again, the argument is telling you that no, the difference in skill between someone who is 1 of 1 versus 1 of 300 is actually greater than the skill difference between someone who is 1 of 300 and 1 of 270,000. I'm sorry, but to me that just doesn't even sound right. I mean, I don't think it's linear, as in I don't think the skill of Aeon Air is as close to Zoink versus a medium demon player as 1 is as close to 300 versus 300 and 270,000. But in all the times I've made a comparison, while being fair to my opposing side, we aren't even coming close to anything that looks like Aeon Air is not only closer to a medium demon hardest player than he is to Zoink, but multiple times closer to medium demon hardest players than he is to Zoink, as many people seem to think. In terms of actual level difficulty, Aeon Air's hardest is much closer to Thinking Space 2, a level that Zoink, not too long ago, spent 80,000 attempts on, and a level that made him take a break. Remember, if a level forces you to take a break, that means that it's pretty hard for you, and cry after he beat it. Than it is a medium demon. And I mean, people like to act like Thinking Space 2 isn't really reflective of Zoink's current skill limit, which I agree it's not completely reflective of his skill limit, but to act like it's not somewhat close after all of those things took place is kind of ridiculous. With me and Denny's combined opinions suggesting that the difference between Deimos and Thinking Space 2 is more than 10 times less than the difference between Deimos and a medium demon. In terms of performance, Aeon Air can be a medium demon, the limit of a medium demon artist player's skill, with much greater ease than Zoink can be a level near the difficulty of Aeon Air's hardest, the limit of Aeon Air's skill in terms of this argument. Although this test has more flaws, the difference is still highly suggestive of Aeon Air being closer to Zoink than he is someone whose hardest is a medium demon. And finally, when directly comparing a numerical figure to Zoink's difference in time and attempts to Aeon's versus Aeon's time and attempts to Toph when his hardest was a medium demon, we also get a very high difference favoring Aeon being closer to Zoink. The only time we've gotten remotely close was when we compared an isolated incident of Aeon's absolute worst performance versus Zoink's.
You got me jumping like boom shakalaka, boom shakalaka. Ah. Yo, T is tough. T is tough.